Hello, Mr. Aguala. Thanks for joining. You've been a great guy, a great fan, a great supporter of this job, of this work so far. Thank you for always coming on board to join us on this assignment. So I want to welcome everybody on board from wherever you have joined this meeting this afternoon. I want to tell you good day, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. So far, we've had people, joining us from Europe, from US, Canada, and some parts of Africa. I want to appreciate everybody for the time. I do not take this for granted because this means a lot to us, not to me alone. It means a lot to every one of us who has been here. Madam Z Obi, good afternoon, ma. Good afternoon for joining another wonderful parenting enthusiast. Thank you. So, you joining means a lot to every one of us. It means that we value knowledge behind parenting. We don't just, want to parent, by default, the way we've been raised, forgetting that we have a different generation, and that is the reason why we are called into this assignment. There is no need for us to really shape up things. If there is no need for us to do it right. If there was not a need for us to do it right, God will not raise handlers in this present time to begin to talk about parenting and family, to begin to talk about marriage, to begin to talk about relationship, to begin to talk about child care, child development. Is because it is the demand of the time, that makes the knowledge around parenting to be indispensable. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, we didn't have something like this. But in the last 20 years, it had to be, because of the generation of children that we are raising now, it is so necessary. So on today's topic, while we welcome others to come on board, on today's topic, I want to talk about does aggression really work in the way we raise our children, in the way we want them to comply, in the way we want to reinforce positive values in them? Does aggression really work? So it was yesterday, in one of the Facebook, groups, somebody posted, it happened maybe in China or Malaysia. Somebody posted an image of a mother, sitting by her son, and the son should be around 5 or 6 year old, sitting with online lecture. Obviously, the dude wasn't really complying, and the image saw the mother, brandishing a pair of slippers, in her hand, as in, meaning that slippers is something that will make the boy, to concentrate. By the time that thing lands on his head, it will reset him, and many comments started flowing. Nigerians now, things like that, we like to really want to flow in the emotion, albeit negatively. As somebody was saying, that slippers will reset his brain. It worked for me in my home, it worked for me in my house. I've spent, some comments, went this way. I've spent so much money. I've bought laptop, bought this, pay high school fees in an Ivy League school, and at the same time, I won't get result. I must get result too. This boy must learn by force. In fact, me, I would do the same thing. Comments like that, and I wrote there that aggression does not equate effective learning in our children. Aggression does not equate or does not reinforce effective learning in our children. When children obey in the face of aggression, when children obey in the face of obvious fear, in the face of obvious attack, object, when they see an object, that object is going to land on them if they don't comply. When they obey, when they comply, it does not mean that learning has taken effect effectively. It does not mean, it only means that they complied, they obeyed, because they are afraid of the parent, they are afraid of the teacher, and they don't want any one of them to, they don't want them to beat, they don't want teachers or parents to beat them. They obey. So instead for them to respond to creativity, what the parents have done makes them to instead for their brain to respond to creativity, their brain rather responds to depravity. Their brain responds to fear, responds to corruption, responds to vices. That is what parents don't really pay attention to. So when they say that when my children see me with my belt, or when they see me with cane, they know what that means. Quickly their brain resets, and if they see it and their brain does, once they see it and their brain does not reset, if I land that in on their head, their brain resets immediately. Then my question is, what scientific approach has really justified that when you hit a child, with a pair of slippers or with cane or with any object, what scientific evidence has proven that that thing works? What scientific evidence? What scientific, okay, fine, let's even forget about the scientific proof. What human knowledge, what human intelligence justifies, or what human intelligence approves or proves that physical abuse, landing physical object in the head or any part of the boy, of the child, resets his or her brain? I'm ready to hear that. I've not seen anybody that tells me. The only thing they keep telling me is it will reset you, it will reset, it will reset. So that's why I know a lot of my colleagues have spoken in this regard, in this line of thought. They've really spoken, they've dissected everything, right? But I thought that parents and teachers, we should have outgrown, this line of thought. To me, it's somehow idle. To me, I thought we'll have outgrown it, but nevertheless, I still see people talking about that. That's why I've decided to take this upon myself today, because when they say that, oh, it worked for me, and I want to tell people that I am a product of the phrase, it worked for me. I am a product of that phrase. Back in the days, my dad was, of blessed memory, was so harsh on us, and when anybody asked him, in our community about, your children, why do they behave like this? My dad will always tell them that they know the kind of father they have. They know that I don't take nonsense, right? So even when my dad was dealing with anybody in my household, in my clan, the people around me knew that it could never be me, because I was so loyal, I was so obedient, I was so compliant in everything he said, in everything he did. It is yes, thank you, thank you, Daddy K. Mr. Kende Akinlami, thank you, Mr. Adigwe, thank you. I appreciate everybody on board. So they knew, and my dad will always brag about that it worked for me. But guess what? Many years later, people scattered. Many of my siblings ran away from home because they couldn't really, contain. They couldn't accept any longer my dad's high-handedness. They couldn't really, they couldn't accept it any longer. And the only thing they could do was just to run away from home. But I endured the pain. I endured the brutality in a way. I endured everything till I was 18 when I left secondary school. So immediately I got to another place like that, then I became a terror. All those things that have been unleashed inside of me. So when the report got back to my dad that, but you claim that what you did to this guy worked. You claim that this guy was gentle. You claim that this guy was the most obedient child of all your children. How come he's behaving this way? My dad didn't have any answer. He didn't have any answer. And when they threw another question at him, that what happened to all those children that ran away from home, he couldn't have answer. He couldn't have answer. But if he didn't know, I knew why they ran away, because they could not contain, they could not agree to the fact that he would always beat us at the slightest provocation that we didn't do some things right, the way he instructed us that we didn't do it, even we tried to figure it in our own way. He wouldn't just agree. So that's exactly what happened, right? So having understood that, so when I still see the many of us parents, when I see many teachers, educators for that matter, when I hear them, when I read their comments, they talk about the fact that when you create fear in children, they will obey. And the question I always ask them, thank you, ma, Auntie Lolade Dyson, thank you all the way from Europe. Thank you for being part of this meeting. Mr. Wole Akinwole, thank you for joining. So, now, look at it this way. When you think that when you create fear in a child for him to obey, I said there has never been any scientific proof to suggest that aggression works. Aggression makes children to learn. No scientific proof. The only scientific proof is to the negative result that comes is this. When you show them aggression, or when you want to use the aggression tactics to get across to them, to reinforce positive values in them, instead for their brain to respond to what? To respond to creativity. Their brain responds to depravity. In other words, their brain responds to corruption. Their brain responds to vices. Their brain responds to attacks. Their brain responds to violence. So immediately they get out of that place, they unleash that has been bottled down, that has been suppressed, that has been unduly subdued in them. They have free expression for it. So that is what the topic, that is the preamble of the topic that I have here today. So I have seen a lot of people complain about it, but for how long are we going to be saying this? Let us get to know our children very well. Even talk about the online classes. We have some children that don't really concentrate. We have some children that are easily distracted because of the online class. That's why some of us parents, we really like the fact that these children should do on site. They should do the physical classes, because we know our children are found along the line of different learning styles. There are some children that will not really, there is nothing you can do. There are some children that will not pay attention on online classes. It's not because they are stubborn. It's not because they don't want to learn. Because I've said this before, every child is receptive to learning. Every child is receptive to learning. It now depends on the instructor, the educator, the parents now to now understand what kind of learning style will this guy, will I apply for this guy, for him to be able to connect with what I'm teaching. So many parents don't even want to know that, but because they believe that they have a kind of their hand, they have an object, they have a pair of slippers to slam on the head of the boy, and the next thing is it will reset their brain. The next thing is it works. What works? The fact that the child obeys, does it make it work? No. The fact that the child does everything that you want him or her to do in the face of anger, in the face of aggression, in the face of high-handedness, doesn't mean that the learning effect has taken place. But the guy really obeyed because he doesn't want you to shout further. He doesn't want you to hit him or her. So that is the reason, one of the reasons why the child will always obey such aggression, right? Now, I did say that I carried out a research because I'm a product of it worked for me. Immediately I started this assignment about 10 years ago, the assignment of parenting, that I started it effectively, that this is what God has called me to. I began to take cognizance of my steps. I began to really know about many things. I began to take a stock of my life. What are those things that happened to me when I was growing up under my dad? What are those things that happened to me when I was growing up under my mom? What are those things that happened to me when I had my siblings around me? What are those things that happened to me when I was in the midst of my friends in a higher institution? What are those things? Even when I started working, what are the impacts that immediate friends, my colleagues in the office, what are the impacts they had on me? I began to take a stock of my life. Then one of the stocks of my life that I took is about my living with my dad. It worked. How did it work? Then I came up with 2 learning methods. The first one, which many parents say it works. What made them to say it works? The first method of learning that they choose that made them to say it works is what I called prescriptive method of nurturing. Prescriptive method of nurturing. Then the second one is descriptive method of learning. The first one, prescriptive method of learning. Then the second one, descriptive method of learning. What is prescriptive method of learning? That the prescriptive method of learning says that we furnish the learners. This is the outcome of the research that I did based on what happened to me, right? Then prescriptive learning method says it furnishes the learners steps to take in any task we give them. Let me take that again. Prescriptive method says that parents, teachers furnish learners with steps to take in any assignment we give them. Right? The learner does not need to think. The children do not need to think. They do not need to think, but they only need to act out the script of the teachers, the script of their parents, the script of the guardians and counselors, the script of the elders, the script of the adults around them. That is what is called, what I termed prescriptive method of nurturing. Then look at the second one, descriptive method of nurturing. So that is one of the reasons why many people, many parents, many teachers, many educators that say it worked for me. This is the reason why they say, because this is how I want it. They give the children, they give the learners, do it this way. And when the children return it, you know what we call garbage in, garbage out. Don't forget, I did say that in prescriptive method of nurturing, learners, children don't need to think of their own. They just go straight to what the instructors, educators, parents, teachers have told them, right? Then the second one, which is the one I want us to go, is more preferable. That is, but it has a lot of work in. That is what I call descriptive method of nurturing. What does this do? Descriptive method of nurturing we meet with the learner, we tell him or her the problem. The first thing we do is to introduce the problem to the learner. The first thing descriptive method of nurturing is to do what? Is to introduce the problem first to the learner, to the children, and allow them to come up with steps to reach the goals. Let me say that again. Descriptive method of nurturing says that educators, teachers, parents, coaches meet the learners, meet the children, introduce the problems to them, right? And guide them to come up with steps to reach the solution. What does this do? It allows, number one, for creativity. The number two, it allows for ingenuity to spring up in the life of these children. Then number three, it gives them the opportunity to give birth to their personal style. On how to solve critical problems at their relative age. Now the question will now be, at what point of time do we introduce a descriptive method of nurturing to our children? And I will say at birth. When a child is giving birth to, I encourage parents to begin to adopt what I call descriptive method of nurturing. descriptive method of nurturing. By the time you do that, you are engaging their creativity, you are engaging their personal style, you are engaging their ingenuity, and you are engaging their innate capacity to birth solutions for everything that God has deposited in them. Now, look at the effect now of prescriptive method of nurturing. I will tell you now. I have about several, in my archive, but I'm here with 3 of them. One of them is there is a part of brain that is associated with creativity, and associated with ingenuity. The name of the part of that brain is called frontal cortex. So when parents apply prescriptive method of nurturing, which is the normal, attracts the normal mantra, it worked for me. What you have done is you have dulled that part of the brain of the child, right? That is associated with creativity, that is associated with ingenuity, that is associated with their personal style, and the name is frontal cortex. Frontal cortex of any child is dulled the moment we introduce aggression in the way we want the child to know, to connect with the positive values we want to train them. The creativity is dull because the frontal cortex is permanently dull. It's been disabled. It doesn't respond to creativity again. What that in response to is depravity. It responds to criminality. It responds to corruption. It responds to vices. A lot of things it responds to. It will be seeing violence instead of seeing creativity, because that thing they made him to do, that thing the educators, that thing the teachers, the parents made the child to do was achieved out of fear, wasn't achieved out of creativity, wasn't given back to on the slab of creativity, but on depravity, which is fear, which is vices. So the child begins to think anyhow, right? So that is number one. The second one that aggression would do to the child, apart from dulling the frontal context of the child, that part of brain that is associated with creativity, the second one that will happen is anxiety and stress level will increase. That is what is happening. Anxiety and stress level of the child will increase, because this thing is possible when you have bottled down, when you have pressed down a tire, you've inflated the tire beyond the normal required, level. Maybe the tire says, from the manufacturer, maybe it says 40 or 45, but you made it just like, the tire can really strong very well. You inflated about, you passed the air about like 50 or 60, 50 into it. At a point, it will burst. That is exactly what we do to our children when we adopt the method of this prescriptive method of nurturing. When we use prescriptive method of nurturing for our children, we are dulling their brain, and at the same time we are increasing their anxiety and stress level. Then the third one, responsibility level will shrink, because we have never allowed the child to own his or her behavior. The law of ownership and possession has been dulled, has been deactivated from their brain. So everything they do is at the request of the parent. Everything they do is at the request of the parent. We don't even allow them to be creative at all, because we don't want them to ask questions. We don't want them to contribute. We don't want them to say, "Oh, Mom, I don't think I'm connecting with anything online." My son told me, my son is 14. His elder sister, it can be flexible. She can learn online, she can learn on-site. But my son is not like that. He told me that, "Dad, I cannot connect online." About last year, when this pandemic started, he told me, "It's my responsibility to figure out what the problem was." And I asked him why, and he told me that he would prefer on-site learning than online learning. As a responsible parent, a responsible father who is aware of the learning style of the child, immediately I knew that what will work for this guy is descriptive method of nurturing. Meaning that, okay, fine, what can we do? This is the problem. How do you want to solve it? Then he came up with his own style on how to achieve it, and he achieved. So there's never been any challenge, whether the online, but you know, when we're not used to the word that it worked for me, this is the way I was raised, it worked for my dad, it worked. The next thing for me to have done by that particular time was to begin to shout away, it's a lie. You must learn this thing by force. After all, your sister is concentrating. Why can't you concentrate? But guess what? They have different learning style. So this is what I want all parents to pay attention to. Enough is enough of this. It worked for me. It worked before because the boy or the girl or the child around you that you are talking to didn't want to, disobey you out of fear, out of the fact that if he or she does, you could slap him or her. And the next thing is, let me just pay attention. And the dad, the teacher, the mom begins to talk around that it worked for me, it worked for me. Enough is enough. When it worked, if it really works for you, why is it that learning effect has not taken place? Because I did say the child involved responded to what? To fear, responded to depravity instead of creativity. That is what we do. So the next one is, what are the positive effects of descriptive method as against prescriptive method of nurturing? So now the first positive effect that will happen when we don't give in to it worked. I don't know how we can be saying that something that worked for us 40 years ago, how can we say that thing will work for the children of today? We forget that this is a different environment, this is a different generation. We belong to either, some of us that are in active parenting today, we belong to either Generation X, that is from 1965 to 1980, or from 1981 to 1994, which is millennials, right? So how can we be, because some of us were made for industrial revolution. Those were the curriculum that was made for us, whether parenting curriculum or educational curriculum. We were made for industrial revolution. It will never work. Prescriptive method of nurturing worked for us as a result of my outcome of my research. Prescriptive method of nurturing worked fine because we were not raised to ask questions. But the one we can use for today's children is descriptive method of nurturing. What does it do? It presents problem to the learners, to the children, and tell them, come up with solution with our guidance, come up with solutions, try it. These children will perform wonders. So the first positive effect from descriptive method of nurturing is learners get to their highest level of creativity and gift. They get to the highest level of their creativity and gift. That is one of the reasons why many of the electronic gadgets, the phones, the internet, the social media handles that we are using today, most of these guys that gave birth to this, that really brought about this innovation, they exited from the normal school, from the normal conventional school, because they knew that what was prevalent in the normal conventional school is what I called prescriptive method of nurturing. Prescriptive method of nurturing is what is dominant in the schools. But they knew that there is a time lag. There's a time lag for the goal. They exited from the school to embrace descriptive method of learning. So when they embraced the descriptive method of learning, that was why you and I can make use of Facebook, make use of Twitter, make use of even the phone, all the devices. None of this was given birth to under the stringent condition of descriptive method of learning. None was given birth to, because that one, there are steps to follow. But descriptive method of learning, no steps. The learners, the children, are given the opportunity to give birth to the solution. They presented the problem to themselves, and creativity naturally rushes in, right? So the second one is they own their own. They own their behavior. Because they know this is the kind of values that we want in this house, as enshrined in the family charter. They know, right? So if they know, I will tell them that this is how I want you guys to behave. And they come up with objections that know that, you can't do this. We too will have the mind to think. And they think. And they say that, yes, we're going to obey you. We're going to do this thing. But this is the way we are going to do it. Remember, I wrote yesterday, I said the goal is not about the compliance, in quote now, quote and unquote. The goal of parenting is not in the compliance, but the goal of parenting is to allow the learning effect to take place. When the learning effect has taken place, what happens is we have successfully, reinforced positive values in them. How they go about it, how they get it, does not matter. It's not about the obedience that we're looking at. We're not looking at the compliance, but we're looking at the learning effect. Does learning effect really take place? Has it really taken place in the life of these children? I remember when I did the episode 35, where I spoke about, 34, I spoke about science class. There are two components there. Science class has two components. The one is lecture room, and the second one is laboratory. So there is a place of laboratory and there's a place of lecture room. So the third one, they are likely going to achieve their goal faster in life because they chose the method to achieve the goal. They are likely going to achieve their goals in life faster than we think because it is their method that they have chosen. This thing is simple. Look at it this way. If you wrote it, if you are a writer, if you own a concept, you own a content, right? What happens to that? Anywhere you go, you can defend it. You own a thesis. Anywhere you go, you can defend it. You didn't copy it. You are the one that sat down, you wrote it yourself. You can defend it anywhere. This is what descriptive method of nurturing does to our children. It brings out the ingenuity in them and it makes them to achieve their goal faster in life. When they achieve their goal faster in life, many people, many institutions are going to benefit from it. The children will benefit, the family will benefit, the society will benefit, and the world at large will benefit. So when you look at my submission today, you would understand there is a limit to our brag about. There's a limit to our brag about. It worked for me. It worked for me. It worked for me. Many of us parents, when our children don't in any way challenge us, when they don't ask questions, when we tell them things, when we tell them stuff and they just say, yes, mom, yes, dad, we brag around that they are obedient. It's working, right? Check out. Check out. It's possible you are killing the creativity in them. It's possible we are dulling the frontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that is associated to ingenuity, to creativity. We should watch it out. It happened to me, and they thought I was obedient. My dad bragged. It worked because I know that boy. The guy is so silent. The boy is so compliant. He's so obedient. He's a great guy. He's a this. He's a that. Right? We must be able to understand. Okay, what's today's topic? Madam Doris Adelaja. Today's topic is actually entitled, Does Aggression Work? Does aggression make our children to comply? Does it make them to obey us? And there is a writer, it worked for me. I'm sure you are used to this, this phrase. When parents, teachers, educators always say that it worked for me. When we tell them that, creating fear in the mind, the heart of a learner doesn't result to effective learning. And somebody will say that, well, it worked for me. And that is, it worked for me is what we are dissecting now. What worked? And I did say, the reason why people say that is because they've adopted the method of prescriptive nurturing. Prescriptive nurturing says meet with the learner, give the learner the steps to take to solve the problem. Don't give the learner any chance to be creative. Just tell the learner, this is how I want you to do it. That is prescriptive learning. Descriptive method of learning is meet the learners, present the problem first. Don't present the solution. Present the problem to the learners, right? Then now tell them, guide them that how do you think this can be solved? They will do it because they will own their own. So this is where I'm going to stop today. But in the next 3-4 minutes before I respond to questions and answers, I want to quickly run through. Don't forget, I did say, as a result of the research that I did, because of my dad used that word as well, that phrase, it worked for me. My dad bragged around that my children know, especially he mentioned my name, that he knows that I don't want this. When I do this, he knows what I mean. He bragged around that it worked. But immediately I left him. What he claimed worked failed to work somewhere else. So if our children can actually be obedient when they are with us, and they are not obedient outside, they are not creative outside, they are not solving problems outside, then what we claimed worked did not work. It actually failed. What we claimed worked actually dulled their brain. They only responded to depravity as against creativity, right? And I said, as a result of that, I came up with a research and I studied my life and the lives of some other people that I know responded to depravity when they were growing up, responded to fear, responded to vices, responded to violence. And I came up with 2 concepts. One of them is prescriptive method of nurturing, which says children, we meet the children, we tell them what to do, we present the steps to them. Even when they want to be creative, when they want to use some other method to solve it, we tell them, no, this is what we use. That is prescriptive. And that is when we begin to say, it worked, right? Then the second one, which I really want our parents to encourage, I want to encourage all parents to adopt, is descriptive method of nurturing, which means we meet the learners, we meet the children, and we present first the solution to them. And we ask them, be creative, how can you solve this? With guidance, they come up with solutions and they do it. And I did say, when they do that, 3 things would happen. The first one that will happen when we adopt descriptive method of nurturing is learners get to the highest level of their creativity and gift in life. Then the second one, they own their own, meaning that they're the one that own the method, they own it, they know what to do, they know what not to do. Then the third one, they are likely going to achieve their goal faster in life. And I did say, the people that gave birth to Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, they exited from the conventional school, because conventional school is noted for prescriptive method of learning, prescriptive method of nurturing. It is stated out step by step, but they know that they will never achieve what you and I are making use of today if they stayed there. They exited and they embraced descriptive method of learning, which responds to creativity, responds to problem-solving skills, right? So, but if they stay with prescriptive method of nurturing, 3 things will happen. The first one is their brain, the part of brain that is associated with creativity will be dulled, and that is frontal cortex. Cortex is going to be dulled, right? Then the second one is anxiety and stress level will increase. Then the last one, responsibility level will equally shrink. They will not own their own. They are not responsible to anything in life. If they are responsible when they were with us, if they are obedient when they were with us, when they get to a particular place where nobody shouts at them, where nobody will throw anything at them, where nobody will slap them, that is when you know that we have not done a great job in their life. They are not responsible to anything because they've not been taught on how to be creative. And I did say there is no scientific proof, no empirical evidence that suggests aggression results to effective learning in the child. When we employ aggression method, when we employ prescriptive method, what happens is they respond to depravity as against creativity. They do it because they fear. They do it because they don't want us to beat them. They do it because they want to satisfy the parent, not to bring their own ingenuity out. So that is one of the dangers, unintended consequences of adopting prescriptive method of nurturing, which really gives birth to the phrase, "it worked for me." So going forward, we must be able to scrutinize what really worked for us as parents, as teachers, as educators, as coaches, as guardians and counselors, and as adults around our children. So that is what I have today. We have spent 40 minutes now. So let me use this to take this opportunity to read out our questions and contributions. Thank you for everybody who has shown up today. Bishop Princess Mudupeola Isijola, thank you for watching, ma. Thank you, ma. Thank you for watching. Copy and paste doesn't encourage creativity. No, it doesn't. And that is descriptive. Mrs. Abisola Muibat Ayagiwa, thank you for watching, ma. Thank you. Contributions, questions. Let's reason together. I believe by now we should all know. Please, let's have the, we have the liberty, we have the opportunity to share this. Stephen Akingboye, thanks for watching. We can share it. Let's share it. Let's share it. People that are not watching now, they can have the opportunity to watch it, anytime it appears on our timeline. This is something that we must get right. Enough is enough of "it worked for me, it worked for me." If it worked only when our children are with us and it doesn't work outside, then it has not worked at all. Or if it worked for the children alone and it's not working for other children around them, it has not worked at all. And at the same time, we even fail, to say this. Many of us that have said this, that I will still say that all these things work. We have not really forgotten. We have forgotten to make mention of how many trainings that we have, we have made ourselves available for. Many of us are bankers. Many of us, came out of official activities. We came out of, Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Job, paid employment. And a lot of trainings have gone into our life before we got about 10 years, 15 years in that employment. We forgot to make mention of those trainings. We forgot to make mention, even as bankers, employers invest so much in the life of the bankers, in the life of their staff. They spend heavily in their training. So we forget to make mention of the trainings that we have attended before we became who we are now. But the only thing we get to say, "it worked for me, it worked for me." Please, when we say "it worked for me," this is the way I was raised, and that is the reason why I am who I am today. Don't forget to make mention of your former employers or your present employers who have invested heavily in training your mind, in reshaping your mind. We shouldn't forget to make mention of all these things. Don't just say "it worked." What are the components of that thing that worked? Then what is the lifespan of that thing that worked? Then what again, are the longer effect of that thing that worked? And that takes me to a quote. That quote is, "It is not how best my children are raised, it is how best the other children outside are raised." Because no society is insusceptible to the larger influence of that society. No child, no family, no individual is insusceptible to the larger influence of the larger society. So we must be able to identify what works and what doesn't work. So in the absence of questions, in the absence of any contribution, well, we can just call this a day. So don't forget, by Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, Legacy Hut with Parenting with Akinropo will be live on Ovation International Television. Legacy Hut with Parenting with Akinropo will be live on Ovation International Television. You can catch up with Ovation International Television on our TV decoder. Our TV decoder is a one-off payment. Once you pay for installation, you don't pay for subscription again. And they have nice, programs, children-friendly programs, TV series that that are good for our children and for adults as well. So catch up with me on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Thank you.